The area that's been eradicated, about 2 million hectares. The area that needs to be cultivated to produce the world's supply of cocaine is only about 200,000 hectares. So for every hectare that we need to grow coca, another 9 hectares of forest have been cut down. Why? Because of our policy. We go in, we locate the field, we spray the field. You as a grower, you're going to replant the field when you know that they're going to come back and spray it again? Or do you move, go, plant, cut down, and plant a new field further out? Yes, you do. Because remember, this is the most valuable crop you can grow. You're not growing a crop close to the airport where you can put it on an airplane and ship raspberries to Whole Foods for delivery on Friday. This is not where you grow, lettuce. There are no airfields except dirt airstrips. You're not putting this onto a, you're not near a highway where you can load this stuff into a truck and take the sugar cane to a sugar plantation or a sugar mill, and then load it onto ships and ship the sugar onto the. This is out in a very, very, very remote, undeveloped part of the world. So you don't have alternative crops that generate the kind of cash that coca generates. There's a tremendous economic incentive to grow. It also gives you independence in a way. If you are a political refugee from the violence and the civil war that takes place in Colombia, coca growing is an area of independence. There's a tremendous displaced population in Colombia because of the political violence there. So the bottom line is our drug policy, our prohibition policy, our eradication policy is threatening the Western Hemisphere's air conditioning system. That's pretty bad. Sure, I think that's pretty bad. Boo, bad, bad. It is bad. And I think it's important. How many of you think global warming is one of the top issues of our generation? Yeah, no shit. Well, here, your tax dollars, through a policy that you know is stupid and does not work, is threatening the global environment. This is information that you need to work in alliance with your green allies, because we need to get very powerful groups like Sierra Club, National Wildlife Federation, World Wildlife Fund, all of the big environmental groups that swing a lot of influence. Their agenda has to be not only protection of biodiversity. On that list has to be ending drug prohibition environmental problems. They need to be our allies in Washington, because it's not as though SSDP, DPA, MPP, and NORML are going to become sufficiently large that we're going to be able to carry this load politically. We have to convince many other people to be our allies in this. Anybody here happen to be an avid hiker or backpacker? Raise your hand. Any of you ever go hiking or backpacking in the national forests? Good places, aren't they great? Aren't they great? How many of you ever run into a marijuana plantation in the national forest? How many of you ever run into somebody with a gun who's guarding a marijuana field right over here? How many of you ever seen booby traps protecting, Well, here's the thing. Think about this. We think, oh my God, city playgrounds, here over there are the broken up crack capsules, and over here are the discarded needles. Who the hell wants to play in an urban playground filled with needles and condoms from the prostitutes and all that? Let's go out to the woods where it's nice and safe and pristine with the fresh air and the birds and the fresh water. Well, what are the advantages of going out there? It's remote. There are not a lot of people walking around. There's a lot of peace. And if you want to do something illegal, it's kind of an attractive place too. One of the laws I helped write in 1984 was to increase the government's power to forfeit the property of drug traffickers. If you grow marijuana at your house, and the government finds it, the government has the power. This is a power that actually goes back to the days of smuggling. It goes back to the first revenue law in the very first Congress, to seize the property that's used in these kinds of crimes. If you grow marijuana on your farm, your parents' farm, your uncle's farm, your garden, your condo, your bedroom, your closet, your property can be seized. If you grow the pot on the government's property, too bad. And of course, there isn't any like deed that they can trace. There's no legal connection between the property and you. It might be introduced in the prosecution against you for the crime of illicit cultivation. So there are structurally advantages if you're going to break the law by growing marijuana to do it in the national forest. That's the logic of prohibition. So we've set up a mechanism to take our most precious, pristine wildlands and turn them over to the fucking criminals. Now, yes, I mean, we don't think of pot growers as fucking criminals because we like pot. But the reality is, we'd much rather not have them grow it in the national park. We'd much rather have them not cut irrigation ditches. Now, you know, with all due respect to Alexis's presentation, pot growers use pesticide. They use pesticides, and they use herbicides, and they use fertilizer to bring in a better pot crop for us in the national forest. And so this runs off into the streams that we might be dipping our water out of for our camp, you know, for our oatmeal in the morning, or to cook our spaghetti or whatever. Our natural resources are being undermined by the logic of prohibition. Of course, the same kind of thing goes on with methamphetamine now. If any of you had to deal with property that's been contaminated with the waste or byproducts of a meth lab, a couple of hands over here. Yeah. Well, making methamphetamine is a tricky little process. One of the laws that I wrote in 1986 at the instigation of the government was in order to try to stop meth labs, was to ban the manufacture of three-necked round bottom flasks. Three-necked round bottom flasks are an essential ingredient in the sort of synthesis of methamphetamine. Of course, what you do is we didn't ban four-neck flasks, which you just don't use one, but you know, that was DEA's recommendation to us, and we were happy to oblige them. Those of you who know Alexander Shulkin, the inventor of MDMA, he always likes to kid me about this, you know, about the three-neck round-bottom flask Sterling bans in 1988. The point, of course, is that if you are in the criminal business of making methamphetamine, it uses lots of powerful odors, it's easily detectable. You know, detectable where the police can find it. But if you go out to the Indian Reservation, the Bureau of Land Management, wildlife areas, the wildlife reserves, the national parks, the national forests, a lot fewer people around. Set up your meth lab, in a day or two you've got, you know, tens of thousands of dollars worth of crank made out of the ingredients that you have. And well, what do? Pack it all up in your pickup truck and carry the toxic waste home with you? Fuck no, I was gonna leave it there. I got business to do. And so we've got, through the irreplaceable logic of prohibition, the poisoning of our lands. So one of the things I ended up doing was writing the federal law that makes it a felony to poison springs, aquifers, forests in the process of manufacturing illicit drugs. One of the many laws that my fingerprints are on from my criminal justice days. Third issue, then, aside from the danger to our recreational interests, the danger to our most precious lands.